What led you, I guess, what led you to biotechnology and biomanufacturing?
So my background is in biochemistry. I received my bachelor's and my master's degree way back in biochemistry. And so the interest in proteins was there. And part of my project was some molecular biology or genetic engineering that would somehow change the protein structure. And so that is where so my interest has been in proteins and the bacteria genetic engineering since the way back. So I entered the pharmaceutical industry and I did research for many years. And the bulk of the research was either working on new products or working on process development, making the biomanufacturing process a little more efficient, a little more cost effective. And then from there, I entered the manufacturing area and I got some experience in different aspects of the manufacturing area. And eventually I started running a production line that went 24 hours, 7 days a week, and it was nonstop. And so from there, I got to learn, I got to see the manufacturing process at the bigger scale. I always understood it at the very conceptual, theoretical level, bench scale, you might say. But now I was experiencing, working with 1,000 liter tanks, 2,000 liter tanks, 3-inch diameter hoses, these huge pumps. And after about 25 years in the industry, I had an opportunity to teach, and that's when I jumped over into working at Ali Trade Tech. And while at Ali Trade Tech, we started the biotechnology slash biomanufacturing program, which is alive and well today.
Okay, well, thank you for that. I know that if I had no idea what biotechnology and biomanufacturing, I'd be a little intimidated based on what you just said to say, is it for me or not? I would love to, even if you want to let me know in the chat. Um, Gwen, Drew, Alexis, and Ashley, um, when you think of biotechnology, what comes to mind for you? Or even if you can you actually just come on The Voice and just let me know what led you to join our session today?
Hi, Miss Green. My name's Alexis. I'm a bioengineering student, and one of the reasons why I joined this Zoom meeting is because on the engineering side, I was interested in biotech. My focus is in research as well, and what I can contribute to debilitating prognoses such as cancer and preeclampsia, stuff that does not have a cure. I believe technology and biology go hand in hand. I remember years ago reading an article about how they use a spinach plant to help heal a heart, and I thought that was very interesting. So that's why I'm here.
Wow. Okay, well, thank you for joining. Would anyone else like to join? I mean, would anyone else like to share what led them to join the session today?
Hello, my name is Andrew. I've always been interested in biology, science. I'm not really going for biotechnology as much as I'm going for the knowledge for fitness. I am a student athletic trainer at Citrus College, and I want to know, I just want as much knowledge as I can that I don't know about biology and what they're putting into our body.
Yeah.
Mm.
Okay. All right. Thank you for sharing that. Would anyone else like to share? Okay. All right. So no pressure. You have time. You can share at a later point in the session. So when you think of biotechnology, what I love most about the industry is how dynamic it is. Not only does it show up in everyday life when every time we eat a croissant or a baked good, that's an example of biotechnology. Every time we wash our face and we're washing our bodies, that's an example of biotechnology. And obviously, you have the medical side, but even when you think of formula, baby formula. When you think of plant-based meat, that is also an example of biotechnology. In addition to when you think of genes and also agriculture. I love that when if you don't have any, like sometimes if you don't have a background in science, you could be a bit intimidated by biotechnology. It sounds like, ooh, maybe I need to be a scientist to do this, but you really don't. What you need to do is just be curious, willing to learn, willing to work hard, and I think that it's an exciting industry to work in. And there's unprecedented growth because of how dynamic all of the industries are. So, what I'd like for you to do now is if you could just close your eyes for a bit. I can't see you. If this was in person, I'd be able to look at you, but it's okay. I'm going to trust that you're going to close your eyes. And I just want you to imagine yourself working in science. When you think of biotechnology, you know, if you were working in science and using living organisms to change the world, ideally, what would that look like? Um, think about, do you feel comfortable? Because some people, it's a bit intimidating, especially if you don't have that biology or engineering or chemistry background. And I want you to write down some of your feelings about the career path and why you want to do it. So I'll give you like 20 seconds to do that. Okay. All right. That was a little less than 20 seconds, but it's okay. So what do you like to do? There's science in your daily activities, whether you're making kombucha or you're baking or marinating meats or making little concoctions for your skin and your face or your hair. These are all examples of using science in your daily lives. So, biotechnology, it's a science that merges biology and technology to develop innovative products and applications. You're using live organisms, cells, or biological systems to solve problems in a variety of different industries. So, of course, the opportunities are endless. And Professor Costa, if you could just share some of the opportunities your students have been able to go into after this program, that would be great because I want to set the tone for what to expect from.
Sure, sure. So the pharmaceutical industry is regulated by the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, and of course the word food is there. So when you think about all of the food industries, the beverage industries, whether it's soda, Coca-Cola, milk, or even beer, they all fall under the FDA. So, and the drug part is the pharmaceutical. And so the reason I say that is because one of the main features or one of the main focuses of the FDA is ensuring that these companies comply with the laws. And those laws are part of or they're found in what's called the Code of Federal Regulations. And so the FDA basically becomes an enforcer. And the sole purpose of the FDA is to ensure that everything that is being prepared, everything that is being presented, everything that is being marketed, everything that is being sold is safe, first of all, and secondly, efficacious, which means that the claim of a certain cure or the relief of a certain symptom is true. And the way that's guaranteed is through something called good manufacturing practices, which is a guideline. And it's kind of funny because we use the word guideline, but it's really an obligation. It's a mandate. It is a law. But when they say a guideline, what they're referring to is it's kind of a general a general, let's see, what's the word, instruction or a general order. Okay. And so what that means is, let's say they say that everything that you're working with must be clean. That's it, period. That's the law. Everything must be clean. So that then becomes the responsibility of the company to not only define clean, and of course there are definitions. There's also other there's areas where they do define what cleanliness is, but the company has to prove that it's clean, and they also have to come up with their own procedure. So then that leads us to the SOPs. So part of the way the way that these instructions are carried into the workplace is through what's called an SOP. It stands for Standard Operating Procedure, and they use the acronym because it's just part of the industry jargon, SOPs. And so the SOP becomes now an obligated document. And so in this program, we learn not only how to write SOPs, but how to follow SOPs. And the reason we write SOPs is because to give you an idea of how a procedure is perceived, how a procedure first comes about. We got to do this. That is part of the job. We have to come up with a procedure. So students here gain a good insight into the SOPs, and of course the regulations. So the second piece now is documentation. In documentation, because it is a regulated environment, we need to write everything down. So everything gets written down as an observation, as data that is being recorded. And there's also sometimes a verification, because if the step is very critical, someone needs to verify. So we are not only talking about that in lecture, but we're actually practicing that in our labs. So you pretty much get your hands on. It's like a hands-on experience, which translate into the job. And so now the jobs. So any job that is part of a regulatory agency. So not just the FDA, but think of OSHA, think of the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency. Think about even the aerospace. The aerospace is actually probably the most regulated industry, because once you're up in the air, right, you can't just pull over if something goes wrong. So every detail must be written down, every detail must be looked at. And so we talk about those details. And so not only does our program cover the pharmaceutical and of course the food and beverage industries, but it'll cover things like aerospace. As an example, I have a student in the last semester that applied to SpaceX and got the job only because of the regulations, the details that we talk about, and the documentation that we talk about in our lectures and we work on in our labs.
Wow. Well, that's amazing. So your students have gone on to work in, I know, water sanitation, aerospace, SpaceX, food and beverage. What else?
Pharmaceutical, right?
Oh,
So
pharmaceutical. Okay.
yeah, so the pharmaceutical is kind of split into two. You have the synthetic pharmaceuticals, which are making the chemical compounds like Tylenol, right? Aspirin, that's a chemical. And then you have the biomanufacturing, the biopharmaceutical, which is making proteins. For example, insulin is a biopharmaceutical product. That insulin is a protein that goes into a bottle that eventually becomes the medicine. So the cosmetic industry, anything that you put on your skin, anything that you put on your hair, anything that's, whether it's soap, shampoo, dye, it's all part of the cosmetic industry that's regulated. Medical device, prosthetic hearts, prosthetic limbs, hip replacements. When you think about all that, that's all medical device, and that's all part of the documentation covers all that as well.
So would you say that if you were to go through LA Trade Tech's program, is it possible for you to not be employed when you have this skill set?
I think that our students that come out of Trade Tech are not only highly sought after, but they're actually valuable employees because of all the details that we put into our program. So it's very unlikely that you will not get a job because these skills are in demand, and you can't just pick them off the street. I mean,
Yeah.
we got to work on these,
Yeah.
So and I wanted to mention one more thing. I mean, think of pet food, dog food, cat food, right? That's also falls under the FDA, by the way.
Wow. Yeah. Wow. What I love about biotechnology is just how much variety there is. So if you're someone that's curious and if you're someone that gets bored, you could work in a lot of different industries and you could also always fuel your curiosity by switching jobs or just advancing. So I'm going to play this video.
What is biotechnology? Since bio is usually related to living organisms and technology related to mechanics and computing, so perhaps biotechnology is related to bionic augmented superhumans? Actually, not quite so. Technology is the use of techniques and science to make products or modify processes. Biotechnology is the use of living organisms, aka bio, to make products or modify processes. Before we can go on to application, we have to understand how living things work, right? Indeed it is. Hence, every major breakthrough in biology understanding is followed by novel biotechnology. For example, in 1865, Mendel discovered the law of inheritance, which basically says that biological traits are passed on to the next generation through particular ratios and expressed according to dominance. This would later lay the foundation of artificial breeding in agriculture, where animals and plants are bred selectively to develop preferred biological traits. In modern day, the central principle behind biology lies in genetics, or DNA. DNA's building blocks, A, T, G, C, can be seen as sort of a life code that is universal to all living things. A string of these life codes, put together in a particular sequence, instructs specific protein formation, resulting in life as we know it. This is kind of similar to how alphabets in English can be regarded as communication codes and universal to all English words. A string of alphabets or communication codes put together in a particular sequence instructs a particular word, resulting in the communication as we know it. The technological application to the understanding of genetics resulted in many applications, ranging from GMO crops in agriculture to gene therapy in medicine. It usually employs the method of introducing DNA from one species to another, or silencing existing genes to achieve specific biological traits. Think about it in a certain way. It is kind of similar to forming new words like chillax, from chill and relax. So, in summary, biotechnology is the technological application of biology, oriented to serve our life. What are some biotechnology you could think of? And what is the future of biotech? Share it with us.
Okay, so I like that video because it gives us an overview of just some of the background. When you think of biotechnology and biomanufacturing, here are the industries versus the end products. So different industries, you have food, nutrition, agriculture, consumer goods, industrial manufacturing like specialty chemicals. You also have healthcare and pharmaceuticals. Some end products that we interact with every day, food and beverages, so wine, cheese, yogurt, beer, in your medicine cabinet, antibiotics, if you are sick and you need to get a vaccine, household products like laundry detergent, and even personal care products, skin products that use hyaluronic acid, shampoos, etc. It was interesting for me to learn that, there are bio-based dyes and fabrics and plant-based leather, so that biotechnology even extends in the clothing and even fuel and packaging would be in products as well. So, Professor Acosta, so some of the students in your classes, when we had this session in person, They talked about their experience. I'd like to know what are some of the struggles that students face in the program, and what sort of industries do they come from? Because not everybody comes with a science background. So, what are maybe some common themes that you've heard from your students in the biotechnology biomanufacturing program at LA Trade Tech?
Yeah. Well, one of the main challenges sometimes is putting in the time, because many students are working, and they I have students who work graveyard shifts, those who work swing shifts, and so part of the so I would say one of the biggest struggles is trying to maintain the job and the school. And a lot of them are also most of the students come from a variety of backgrounds. There's a variety of backgrounds, and most of them come from non-science. So they come in with no background in science. And so that becomes another challenge, because this is a science-based program. But the good note is that the our program is set up so that we work with people's schedules. We try to do as much online as we can, so that way you don't have to come. But the one thing that we cannot avoid is the in-person laboratory, because that's what employers are looking for. When you start to look for jobs, right? The one of the main things is, do you have experience? And so I tell people that our laboratory is a form of experience, because you're touching it, you're putting it together, right? You're learning how to operate it. So of course the experience comes from doing it over and over again, which we don't have that, but we do have a learning experience, hands-on experience. So the employers have kind of put that as part of one of the main requirements in terms of making sure that students are there in person.
Okay.
So we try to work with that so that at least there's that. And then of course the other online portion, which means like me personally, I'll record lectures so that if you can't see it at that time, right, it's there for you. The exams and the quizzes are online, and I usually give students ample time to take it. So that's how we kind of overcome that. But of course, we can't totally negate the fact that we got to complete these units. And then the other part about the science, and earlier, one of the as Megan mentioned, that a lot of times the science, or the term biotechnology, right, sounds very intimidating, because it's sounds so high tech. But I want to assure you that it is doable. I mean, we have lots of people who come in, and we give them a basic understanding. So this isn't a what we call a theoretical. When you think about someone getting a bachelor's degree, let's say in chemistry or physics or biology, there's a lot of theory there, which are these ideas of how things work. Well, in our case here, we're not really focused on the theoretical, but we are focused on how things work. So this is why we give you some basic science, so that you understand how things work. And when terms are used, let's say genetic engineering, molecular biology, right? Like, what do those words actually mean? And so that's how we present these courses. So at the end of the day, it's all about understanding how to put things together, understand how the machines work, the equipment works, and why that is so important is because when things malfunction, and things do malfunction, this is why we are here. The reason the industry needs people is because things malfunction, things break down all the time, which is something that robots still can't do, right? Robots can move things along, but once they get stuck, it gets stuck, and they can't do anything about it. So this is why so by understanding how things work, it helps you troubleshoot and try to figure out why. And so that's what we try to present to you here. So that's been my experience with some of the students, some of their challenges, and of course, and how we overcome these challenges at Trade Tech.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, that's really helpful. I know that I've had some students that wanted to go to maybe get a 4-year degree in biotechnology, and some of those students also sometimes don't get employed. So what's your advice when it comes to pursuing a longer biotechnology degree versus going into the application of biomanufacturing in that process?
So when you say biotechnology, like a bachelor's degree,
Yes.
okay. One of the advantages of community colleges is the community colleges. There's right now there's 5 programs in California that offer a bachelor's degree in science in biotechnology, a BS in biotechnology. And so the difference between that degree and our certificate or even AS degree, if you decide to get an AS, is in the biotechnology, you're now working with a little bit more sophisticated equipment. Again, we give you the basics, but there's a whole industry. People dedicate their lives to this, so there's constant learning, right? There's always something new. So there's no way you could ever learn everything all at once, and that's what takes time. So with a bachelor's degree in biotechnology, you're now put in a position where you can now work with more sophisticated instrumentation. There's something called characterization of the product, which is part of the laboratory experience, for example. So you can work in a laboratory in a QC function, a quality control function. In the characterization, you're now looking at the actual protein itself and whether it meets all of the prerequisites, the definition of that protein. So when you think of the size of the molecule, because these are molecules, they're just very, very large. We call them proteins.
Okay.
The size of the molecule, their ease at how they bind and interact with other chemicals or other proteins. So that's the big advantage to a BS degree is that a BS degree would just, and it also puts you in a supervisory role, or at least in the supervisory route. Many companies now, if you want to, let's say, move in and be a manager, they're requiring, a next level degree. And so that's a big advantage as well. So
Okay. Okay, thank you. And another thing I do remember from one of the students was just saying space out the harder classes like chemistry. Don't do everything in one semester so you don't overwhelm yourself. And a lot of the students have mentioned that because a lot of it is online and it's just a lab once a week, it allows them to still work and continue their education. So that's important for students to understand. So when you think of biotechnology, think innovation. You're using biology to solve real world problems. So it's not just about lab coats. You can be in medicine, food, tech, climate, agriculture, etc. If you're wondering whether biotechnology is for you, you're here. So it is. Most people believe you have to have a PhD or a genius, but as I mentioned, you need curiosity, attention to detail, and a willingness to learn. Biotechnology is an industry that you can constantly feed yourself new knowledge, like you mentioned, Professor Costa. I think it's exciting to be in an industry where you are never going to know everything. So you can always improve. You can always learn better ways and strategies. I know I'm someone that likes to be challenged. I get really bored if I'm not. So being in an industry where you can constantly up level, I think is really, really exciting. Okay. So, what can you help create in biotechnology? So, you can cure diseases like cancer, diabetes. You can make clean energy. You can grow meat without killing animals. You can design devices that saves lives, and you can fight health inequity even in your community. Biotechnology not just changes other people's lives. There's so many. Now that you're going to think about biotechnology after this session, you're going to see how much it influences your life. Try to go a day and think about, okay, is this biotechnology? And how many times are you encountering biotechnology every day? I'd say at least 10 times. And what's exciting is that there's a place for every passion. So again, if you're more interested in agriculture or being in the pharmaceutical side or even going into the aerospace industry or cosmetic industry, it's a space for creatives. You'll get to be with diverse teams, and it's exciting that if you are someone that has many passions, you can learn a lot and grow in this industry. So we mentioned what is biotechnology. What I love most is the fact that it's job security. It's really lovely to be in a recession-proof industry. So I remember working in the aerospace industry, and even during the pandemic, I was working. I had a side business in personal care. So believe it or not, soap is an essential need. So when every other office work was closed due to the pandemic. We got to keep going. So being in biotechnology, where there's a desperate need for trained technicians right now, it's exciting because you're learning practical skills that will give you a sense of security and safety throughout your whole lives. Because I'm someone that always wants to develop a skill set that you can take anywhere, and this is one of those. No matter where you go in the country, having this skill set will serve you. I know mostly everyone here is in California, but I've been posting about this online, and I've had people from South Africa, lots of different places saying, "Hey, can I join this program?" Because they also understand that you could be in Denmark and work in biotechnology. Um, and this is my background is working in the aerospace industry. And to learn about an industry where there's more jobs available than there are people is mind blown, because it makes you question why does everyone grow up wanting to be the same thing even when there's not enough opportunities. So learning, even taking on this role, I got really excited about it because I am passionate about people doing something for their lives that will serve them today, but also serve them for years to come. And I think that, I mean, we're going to get deep here, but I think it's creating a legacy, because you taking the step to go into biotechnology shifts the trajectory of people around you, because some people have never even considered biotechnology and they've never been exposed to it. But just merely by you going into this industry and growing and learning and feeding your family, improving your lives, other people will see, oh, this person works in biotechnology. Maybe I should consider it. There's a really great time to do it, which is now, because California is one of the hubs for the life science industry. There's so many jobs, there's so many grants, and just so much money, resources are being sent into the industry, that to start here now, you have a lot of flexibility and variety to grow. Biotechnology isn't going anywhere because people will always need medicine and will always need things to make our lives easier using biology and technology. And again, it's recession proof. So regardless of the economic conditions, you'll be working. Imagine how great that is. I know a lot of you know, people that work in the industry in LA, and if the industry goes overseas, so does the jobs. So there's so many people who had a bit of stability prior to 2020 that don't really feel that now. So I'm a big fan of upskill. So upskill so you can have options. Even if you decide that, you just want to do this for a few years. California has invested a lot of money into the Biotechnology Workforce Board. Right now, the life science industry in California, it generates $414 billion in economic output. That's crazy to think about. $414 billion. I want to be a part of that. You know what, Professor Acosta, I think I'm going to need to sign up. I feel like I need to have this in my back pocket. Um, but yeah, I love that biotechnology, there's opportunities, there's growth, there's stability. Right now is a good time. Do we have any questions? Because, we could talk about this all day, but I'd love to learn based on what you've heard so far. What are some of your questions? What are some of your concerns? Are you interested in becoming a biotechnology, biomanufacturing student at LA Trade Tech? Or what can we clarify? So I'm going to open it up to questions. Okay. So Alexis, Ashley, Brittany, Drew. Well, Andrew, do you have any questions about what we've discussed? You have someone that's been in the industry for 25 plus years, so this is a great opportunity to get any questions answered.
Now, if I may add, remember this is most of these operations are 24 hours, 7 days a week. So just with that alone means there's lots of opportunity, right? There's lots of uh, there's a big need for employment, right? So just that alone, and even weekends. I mean, some of the schedule. I'll just kind of give you an idea of the schedule, but I think I saw a question. Let me down to the question. See, it was very informative and will help overlap my bioengineering career journey. Yes, it definitely will. So if you're in bioengineering, this is basically a bioengineering topic. The term biotechnology refers to the concept of taking a gene, which is a piece of DNA that is responsible for a particular thing in our bodies. For example, the color of our eyes. There's a gene that's responsible for the color of your eyes. That gene was inherited through your parents. So that gene now, so now put this, let's take this a little step further, right? Now think about genes that are responsible for various proteins. Let's consider insulin. Okay, there's a gene that produces insulin. So if somebody who's diabetic and is missing the insulin protein, then bioengineering, the biotech part now, we take the gene and we put it into a host cell, typically like a bacteria. And there's more sophisticated microbes like mammalian cells, but let's just kind of keep things at a basic level now. You take a simple bacteria, it has its own DNA. You clip the DNA, you split it, and you just kind of give it a little cut at a certain point. You then insert the gene, you close it back up, you put that DNA back into the cell, and now the machinery of the cell, as it starts replicating, it will produce its own proteins that will assemble the cell, and in addition, it'll produce the protein on that gene. In this example, that'll be insulin. So now, when you grow up a culture of cells, so we're talking about millions and billions of cells, every single cell is producing the insulin protein. So now you end up with this large volume of this large solution volume that contains the insulin. And so now that's where the biomanufacturing process starts. Now it's about removing it and purifying it and eventually making it into a bottle. So that's the the biotech, the bioengineering portion. So I kind of lost my train of thought. I was talking about what was I going to talk about when I saw the comment and I switched over to the bioengineering portion. Okay, I have to kind of think back because we were talking about the employment part, right? So there's lots of opportunity. These oh, I was going to talk about the actual shift schedule. So how is a shift schedule covered? Well, let's say the day shift starts at 6 a.m. and they go to about 2:30, right? So that's an 8 hours with a 30-minute break. That's like a typical example. So at 2 o'clock, 2:30, the what's called the swing shift comes in, and now they work until about 10 p.m. That's about 8 hours, and then maybe 10:30, and now the graveyard shift comes in at 10 p.m. or the night shift, depending on the term you want to use. So at 10 p.m. they come in and they work till 6 a.m. So that's typically the Monday through Friday schedule. The weekend schedule is sometimes covered through a 12-hour shift. So let's say on so the people who work Friday, the night shift will work from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. So now it's Saturday morning. And now the weekend shift, the weekend day shift comes in at 6 a.m. They work till 12. I'm sorry. They come in at 6 a.m. and they work till 6 p.m., 12 hours. And then the night shift comes in at 6 p.m. and they work till 6 a.m. That's the 12 hours. So they do this Saturday and Sunday. And now they do another 12-hour shift somewhere in the middle of the week. That's like a typical schedule. So with that weekend schedule, you end up working 36 hours because actually in California, when you work 8 hours, the after that it's actually considered overtime. So they built in the a 40-hour schedule or a 40-hour pay week into a 36-hour work schedule.
Okay.
So yeah.
And I know that a lot of the companies, because if you're a valued employee, they will give you overtime and just opportunities to keep working if you're willing and you're adding value. I
Yeah.
remember working in the aerospace industry and I just couldn't stop working because it was like, you're going to pay me time and a half. Why would I do anything else? So I would work during, Monday through Friday, but I would still come in on Saturday, every Saturday, because it was just, easy money for me. So it's
Sure.
the same way in this
Yeah.
industry as well.
Now, another advantage is it's a very clean environment. You're working with the air and the floors and the walls. Everything is very clean, so it's a clean room environment. So that's kind of that can be good. And then the other part is this is a very air conditioned industry as well
Mm,
because the product needs to stay in a cold, in a cold environment. So think of those hot summer days when you go to work, you're literally like in an air-conditioned room like all day long. Sometimes to the point where it might even get a little chilly, so you kind of have to wear, little warm undergarments to kind of keep you comfortable. But it is that's one that I remember during our summers, once like June, July, August, September, October, we get those really hot days. I remember walking in and just feeling so comfortable. And no matter which room you walk into, like there's no gaps. So I thought that was another big advantage.
yeah, I know it is because most times when you're working in manufacturing, especially like in the aerospace industry, depending on what you're doing, you're dirty, you're hot. It's
Yeah.
uncomfortable, but you're making good money. Now you can be clean, comfortable, and still making bank. I think that's a win. Okay. Well, any questions you have, feel free to ask them in the chat. So, just a little more information about the BioTC certification. So, once you go through LA Trade Tech's program, after 6 months, when you finish the first leg, and Professor Acosta will talk about that briefly, you're then eligible to take the BioTC exam. And once you take the BioTC exam, you're able to get a certification that essentially gives you a stamp of approval to employers that you have the qualifications that they need, so they're more likely to hire you. The BioTC exam was created by employers to make sure the students coming in were tested on all of the core competencies needed for them to be successful in the workplace. And we have a lot of relationships with employers. So once you start LA Trade Tech's program, you'd work with me directly, and I'll either myself or my colleague will be presenting your resume in front of employers. We'll also do professional development as well. We talked a lot about biotechnology when you're doing more of like the application in biomanufacturing. The questions that companies are seeking to answer is essentially, is it safe? And that's why when Professor Acosta discussed the learning to do the standard operating procedures and documentation is important. Uh, I just want everyone to know that Because the BioTC exam is funded by the Verdugo Workforce Development Office, there's a lot of support with WIOA, where if you're eligible, we could potentially get your training paid for. You will get professional development. We're working on a new grant where students who are going into biotechnology can get a stipend. So even Professor Acosta, I know as soon as the new semester starts, I'll come in and talk to your students about getting enrolled with WIOA. So if they need any support during their program, prior to the end of it, where of course we'll help them with employment, it'll help support them throughout the program. What is exciting is that you are going to be connected with life science companies as a result of going through this program. So it's a program that is preparing you for employment. It's not just great information to have, it's great information that is going to lead to you looking very attractive to employees, to employers that want employees with your skill set. We work with a variety of different community colleges, but we're focused on LA Trade Tech right now. Here's we talked about all the end products. This is again an overview. Professor Kosa, thanks for mentioning dog food. I think it's, especially now because there's so many ads. I have a friend whose husband, he has a dog food company, and it's like one of the healthier dog food companies. So biotechnology is dog food, it's cat food, it's laundry, it's wine, it's yogurt, it's cheese, it's skincare, it's collagen, it's fabrics, it's vaccines. It's just very, very it's just very the varieties are there's just so many varieties and opportunities. Again, biotechnology, it started with, making beer, making wine, making cheese, gene therapy. I'm not going to go into too much of the history, but why it matters is the fact that biotechnology solves humanity's biggest problems. And so many problems have been alleviated due to the advancements in this industry. And I think that if you're someone that wants to be fulfilled in your work, knowing that your work is contributing to the greater cause is I just think it's really excellent to be a part of, whether it's cleaning up environmental damage or making sure there's enough food to grow for a growing population, or even more sustainable alternatives to petroleum-based products, knowing that people died because they didn't have the answers to certain ailments. And now that some of these diseases are now treatable with the advances of biotechnology, that's really, really exciting. We talked about how you could be in agriculture, food, environmental, medical, and even biotechnology, which is more of biomanufacturing or the industrial side. That is exciting. I don't want to really go into all of these, but what we could do is if you could discuss LA Trade Tech's program, that would be great. So let's talk about that, and then we'll go into just you can look at this slide and see the benefits of biotechnology, and then we'll go into the ethical considerations and then answer any questions you may have.
Okay. So as I mentioned earlier, the Trade Tech program is a 3-semester program, and it starts off with the first introduction to biomanufacturing class. Now, what we did is we teamed up with 2 other programs that we have at Trade Tech, the Chemical Technology program and the Process Technology program. The Process Technology program deals with more heavy and industry. So think of like the petroleum industry, the paint industry, right? So very very heavy, but it's still industrial, still manufacturing. And then the chemical technology program deals more with laboratory. A lot of these manufacturing companies, they need laboratories to analyze their products. One of the best ways to ensure that your product or your process is working properly is the product itself has certain characteristics. So the laboratory will analyze and ensure that those characteristics are being met. So our program will work with students in the laboratory. So we combine those three programs because these three programs all have a very common topic, a very common field that covers all of the three programs. So so the biomanufacturing class that we start with starts off with a brief introduction to the pharmaceutical, the drug discovery, the drug approval process, and then we move into the topic of metrology. In metrology, we're looking at metrology is the study of measurement, and in metrology, we're looking at how measurements are fundamental or even significant to the actual process and the product itself. And measurement is something that we kind of take for granted. I know it sounds very simple, but the measurement will ultimately define the actual product. So let's say we're building toy trucks, and the truck has a dimension, right, that's like 5 inches high, wide, 10 inches in length. That dimension is very, very important because at the end of the day, it's about the customer purchasing that product. And if there's variability, some days it's 12 inches, some days it's 6 inches, other days it's 8 inches. That variability actually is very dissatisfying. The key thing to success is consistency. Think about why McDonald's is such a successful business. It's because of consistency. Yes, their food can be good. I mean, I love Big Macs, but the consistency of no matter which McDonald's you walk into in the world, you will find the same Big Mac. So it is that consistency that customers come back and they're the ones buying your product. So the success comes from the repeat customer. So if we have variability in our product, then the customer will not be satisfied because they have a certain expectation. When even us, right? When we walk into the store, we have a certain expectation of a particular product. And if we open up that product and it doesn't have what we expected, we become very dissatisfied. And that's where we start to kind of move away. So metrology becomes a big part of the industry, no matter what industry you're in. The other part of metrology is when you measure something, how do you know that measurement is actually correct? So think of a scale. Let's say you go to the store, you buy some tomatoes, 10 pounds of tomatoes. They're $1 a pound. Okay, so you put the 10 pounds on the scale. I'm sorry, the bag of tomatoes on the scale, and it says 10 pounds. You owe $10, right? Well, how do you know you really have 10 pounds? What if you have 9 pounds, right? They kind of shortened you, right? It's a little short, but you're still paying the $10 because according to the scale, it's 10, but in reality, it's 9. So there's something wrong with the scale, right? So we don't know that until we actually test it. Well, in metrology, we go over those kinds of concepts and we show you how to ensure that the instrument is literally working accurately. And when it's not working accurately, what do we do? How do we basically end up fixing it? And that's part of the calibration. So there's something called standardization and there's calibration. So from metrology, we move into the health and safety. So every industry out there should be adhering to safety laws. One of the things that I tell students, you should never go to work and have the possibility of like losing a finger. Nobody should ever go to work and lose a finger, lose a hand, lose a foot, because that becomes the responsibility of the company. So what we do here is we look at all the different kinds of hazards. We look at from the physical to the chemical to the biological to the physical, right? The electromotive forces, so that we can recognize when there is a hazard, right? And so not only not put us in jeopardy, but other colleagues and of course even the company, because now the company becomes liable. And as a matter of fact, going back to the metrology, that becomes another employment opportunity. The industry needs people who can work in metrology, who can fix these machines. In the health and safety, the companies need people who understand health and safety, and so that becomes another employment opportunity. From health and safety, we then go into the microbiological control. What are some of the aspects that control the contamination, right? So we get a little understanding of the microbes themselves. What are particulates, whether viable or non-viable? How do we control them? And then we talk about another topic called operational excellence. In operational excellence, we're looking at how to become more effective and more efficient. So in this case here, these are techniques you could actually apply to your own life. When you think about we only have 24 hours a day, how can we get most from that day? So we evaluate, so in terms of the industry, right, we evaluate how to become more efficient and more effective. And there's lots of different techniques that we learn, that we talk about. But what exactly does that mean? When you're being effective, that means that you are doing it correctly every single time. Okay? You are not deviating, there's no mistakes, right? So you're being very effective. You're hitting the target every single time. And when you are efficient, you're doing things quickly. You're able to do more in less time, right? And so those are two aspects that the industry values. So we talk about how to become more effective and more efficient, which is a very valuable topic, not only in terms of work, but also in terms of the your own personal life. And then the last two parts here, it's quality. Every industry out there has a quality area, quality department. The quality area is quality assurance and quality control. In quality assurance, they are making sure that the product is being made correctly every single time, or at least is being followed, right? The instructions are being followed. So if something needs to be run at 25 degrees Celsius for 1 hour, quality assurance will ensure that it did happen for 1 hour at 25 degrees Celsius. That becomes another employment opportunity. And then quality control becomes the laboratory portion of this group here. So now a sample is taken to the laboratory, and now they're going to analyze it and ensure that the product conforms to the physical characteristics, the chemical characteristics, the molecular characteristics of the product. So I know it sounds like a lot, but that's one class right there that pretty much covers the majority of our industry. So you got a very basic foundation, a very good foundation there. The other two parts there, the other part in the first semester, we're looking at regulations and regulatory agencies. What exactly are they? So we give you the history of the FDA, the history of the EPA, Environmental Protection Agency, and the history and the function of OSHA, Occupational Safety and Health Administration. So all we talk about there is laws, because that's what regulations are. They're laws. These industries are regulated. So we talk about the laws that actually apply to these industries. In the second semester, you move into specific equipment, understanding how equipment is put together. So you look at valves, you look at pumps, you look at motors. In the instrumentation, you're looking at pH meters, thermometers, you're looking at conductivity meters, you're looking at the instrumentation that measures all of these analytical factors. And in the last semester, we go into, at least in my case, we move into the biomanufacturing, and we spend a whole semester there only looking at biomanufacturing techniques, the filtrations, the chromatographies, the buffers, the tangential flows, the depth filters. We talk about all the different property, all the different pieces of equipment and the process in order to get that final product. So aseptic filling, we look at validation, we look at the packaging process. The packaging process is part of manufacturing because you still got to document, you got to record everything that's being done. Someone needs to sign it off. And at the end, it goes into a package. And that's what ends up being, that's what ends up at with the patient. And every bottle needs to be perfect. When you're filling 1,000 2,000, 20,000 vials, you may think, oh, maybe one or two bottles, didn't come out okay. It's all right. We'll let it go. But you got to remember, every single bottle makes it to a person. Every person, I'm sorry, every bottle will make it to a person where that person now is going to open up that bottle and it has to be pristine. So every detail here definitely counts. So we stress that in our third semester.
That's really, really helpful to hear because it makes me think about oftentimes where that process or that step in the process is neglected, and then there's a recall on the product just because of faulty packaging.
Yeah.
This happened with coconut water. A lot of coconut water was recalled because there was some sort of mold inside the packaging. So I think it's important to understand that every part of the process is important, and what you're learning is so critical to what the consumer ends up getting. So even just being attentive and committed to excellence and understanding all of these things, sometimes it is a life or death situation because if you let something go by you, that's how things are recalled later.
That's
Yeah.
right. And so the reason we document is for the recall. In case something happens later on, they can come back and investigate and see, well, where did we miss something? Where, or by looking at the records, by looking at the documentation, you can try to find where the mistake could have been made, which
Yeah.
is a big part of the job.
Yeah. Okay. So we discussed so much about biotechnology, biomanufacturing. You should have enough information to decide if this is something that excites you or something that you'd be interested in continuing. What you can do is actually learn how to enroll. I'm going to put my email in the chat. So if anyone is interested in enrolling, they can reach out to me directly. One thing I want to stress here is that although LA Trade Tech's program is 3 semesters, after the first semester, so after 6 months, you learn all that you need to learn to take the BioTC exam. And once you take that exam, you can get hired. So there's been many times where students have gotten hired before the program's over. And guess what? The program's flexible, so you can still continue working. And most of the employers, they want to know that you're continuously improving and you're committed to education. So oftentimes they'll be flexible with you. So, Professor Acosta, I know you didn't discuss that, but even the fact that your students sometimes get hired before the program is even over, how does that make you feel?
Yeah, that's a bittersweet feeling. And yes, that is the absolute truth. A lot of companies do not require any kind of official certificate. So once students start taking the classes, they become actually very valuable almost immediately. And so sometimes they leave the program, which is good that they're getting jobs, that was really our purpose, but bad because, well, then they're not actually finishing up the program sometimes, so that's where I kind of get a little, not disappointed so much, but a little more hurt, right? Because that's our job. But yes, many students will actually get jobs while they're still in school because of what they're learning, and of course the employer will recognize that almost immediately. So and that kind of reminds me, as we're working in laboratories, for example, and we're working in lectures, I will pinpoint some of the words that you'll use in an interview. So when you're interviewing, in order to convince the hiring manager that you kind of understand what you're saying, right? There's certain words that you can use that only the industry knows. And so I'll point out, like, that's something you want to mention in the interview.
What are some
Even
keywords?
buffers,
Just quickly, buffers, okay.
chromatography, tubing, worksheets, manufacturing work orders, batch
Mm.
records. All of that are keywords when it comes to SOPs, standard operating procedures. All these are words that are used during the job. and they're key. You know, these are like the little green flags that pop up in the hiring managers, and they're like really. I even encourage, so everything we work on is batch records. You're writing everything down. I encourage students to take those with you to the interview, so you can
Yeah.
show the hiring manager this is the kind of stuff that we're working on, and that I kind of understand now,
Wow.
and that becomes a big. It opens up a door for the students.
Okay. No, no, that's really, really helpful. So this is one of my favorite slides. Is it necessary? No, but I think it's interesting to understand some of the ethical considerations when it comes to biotechnology, because although there's rapid progress, people get a little crazy. They want to clone their dog. Professor Kosa, can you mention that? I know you mentioned someone cloning their dog and like even this show. So right here on the left. It's this show on Netflix called Orphan Black, and it's about biotechnology. And like all of these girls are clones, and they all have different personalities, and they grew up in different places. And these clones are owned by this larger company that's trying to like, it's just so amazing. So sometimes you can go into a rabbit hole with biotechnology. And I think considering that although this is an industry that does so much great, there are many flawed humans in the world, and sometimes people take it a bit too far. And what does that look like, Professor Costa?
Yeah, that's the ethical part, right? And there's always unethical people. Um, Unfortunately, yeah, this technology, this piece of work can actually be used to clone people. And so, but as was mentioned, when you clone, even if you were to clone people or animals, you still end up with different personalities. However, what you are cloning are the actual physical features, right? You're not necessarily cloning the brain, but you are cloning the physical features. And that's the unethical part where you can literally create, groups of people that are all very similar. They all look the same. They may not necessarily behave the same, but they all definitely will look the same. And so that is but there's laws there's even international laws that are in place to kind of prevent this kind of action. But this is the technology. I mean, that's how powerful this technology is, where you can actually create other beings or other animals, or that all have the same. And it's and again, it's kind of it's a twofold. I mean, let's say think about if we were to clone animals that have a certain property that is beneficial to humans. They produce a certain protein, or they produce it, then that becomes kind of a good thing. But if you're just cloning them to kind of create the same animal, well, then maybe not so much, right? So, but yes, it is an ethical question, and the answer right now is no, you're not allowed to, right? But that usually doesn't stop people.
Yeah, it still happens. So again, just to reiterate, the biotechnology and biomanufacturing program at LA Trade Tech is incredible. It really prepares you to work in the industries. Once you get this knowledge, you're sought after by employers. I have an employer right now that's looking for 9 technicians. So once you go through the program, you become a technology, biomanufacturing technician one, and you can easily grow within the industry from there. Once you get the certification, we put your resume on the Biocom Institute Career Lab. It's an online portal. You get a lot of guidance throughout your career. We have like different employer connections online. You get a digital badge as well that essentially says you have all the skills and qualifications needed for this role that many employers are very excited about, because you save them time and money, and they know that you are someone that they can invest in because you've already invested in yourself. Um, do we have any questions about the LA Trade Tech program? I would love for anyone that wants me to follow up with them directly. If you're thinking about enrolling, the next semester starts February 7th, correct? Professor Acosta?
So the spring semester?
Springs, the February 9th, right?
Yeah, the spring semester will start February 9th. Yes.
February 9th. Okay. And what, the first class that you have to take, what day is it on?
I will be teaching the Biotech 10 class, and that'll be on Mondays and Wednesdays from 12 p.m. to 3 p.m.
Okay. And that's online. When is the lab?
So yeah, so well, one of them is online and the other one is lab. Oh,
Okay.
I'm sorry, one of them is lecture, one of them is lab. So
Okay.
right now the uh the lab, I believe, is on Wednesday, and the other way around. The lab is on Monday and the lecture's on Wednesday.
Okay. Okay. No, that's helpful. And
And then the second course, there's a second course this semester, and this one's strictly online, and it is what we call asynchronous, which means that you kind of go at your own pace. And
mm,
that one is offered, right? I mean, obviously, it's offered. You go at your own pace. So that would be the second. That's our Process Tech 214 class, and that's a regulations class. So half of it is regulations and regulatory agencies, and the other half is employment skills. So we go over resumes and interviews, and you do meet with. So I co-teach that with Dr. Harper, and she does the employment skills, and I do the regular regulations portion.
okay. Okay, if there is anyone in the chat that wants me to reach out to them because they're interested in enrolling, can you send us a message? Or what you can do is you can email me at g.megan91@gmail.com. We can set you up with a career counselor, Veronica. And once you say you're interested, this is something you want to do, you're excited about it, we'll then schedule you to meet with Veronica and she'll go through the enrollment online. The sooner you're able to do that, the better, because then we can work out how do we get this paid for, what avenue do we want to go through, and then we'll get to see if you're eligible for any WIOA funding. Okay, Alexis, I will reach out to you. Is there anyone else that's interested or have any follow-up or last minute questions for myself or Professor Costa? Okay, well, if you don't have any questions, we'd love for you to just, let it simmer. This is a really great industry, and even if it's something that you can't do right now due to schedule, we can figure it out. Being at LA Trade Tech, there's a lot of perks of being a student. One of the perks is even childcare. You can get your hair done for $9. You can get a facial for like $10. You can get your car worked on where you only pay for the service or for the parts and not the service. So it's a really, and they have a great culinary program, so you can get excellent food for really cheap. So I know that oftentimes when you're doing a program, it can seem overwhelming to add the educational piece to your schedule, but LA Trade Tech goes above and beyond to make sure the students have some of the perks and other support necessary for you to be successful, regardless of where you are at your career and regardless of what age you are as well. Professor Costa, is there anything else you'd like to add?
No, that's it. So hopefully we'll see you soon. Thank you all for being here.
Okay, perfect. All right. Well, I'll reach out to everyone just to kind of touch base. Alexis, I'm gonna send you an email now. So I'll connect you with Veronica and then we'll go from there. Thank you, Professor Costa. Thank you to everyone joining. Biotechnology is a really exciting industry. I hope that you just take the leap because there's lots of opportunities. So have a lovely week. Remember the next semester starts February 9th, and there's even an orientation this Saturday where we'll be. So getting to a decision sooner than later is ideal. Okay, perfect. All right. Thank you. Have a lovely day, and we'll chat soon. Okay. All right. You're welcome, Andrew. All right. Have a good day.